What's up, guys? It's the Social Ham here, and we're gonna be talking about the anti-riot bill that Governor DeSantis of Florida signed into effect on Monday. It's still pretty recent, so I want to talk about it because it is pretty important. Unfortunately, this riot bill is pretty crap. It's anti-free speech, as I would like to say. Um, it's full of really bad policies, really awful things. But before I get into it, just remember to click that subscribe button, hit the like, and leave a comment down below. It can be funny, it can be hateful. I don't really care. Engagement. But anyway, I want to get into this. So essentially, on Monday, Governor Ron DeSantis signed an anti-riot bill into effect. This is due to the wake of obviously Black Lives Matter and a bunch of protests and riots that happened after the wake of the killing of George Floyd. And now he wants to combat that. Even though Florida wasn't really struck with a lot of rioting and looting, we had protests, but we didn't have that many rioting and looting. I think up in central Orlando around there was like one night of rioting and looting, but it was nothing as bad as we saw in Portland or Seattle or in other cities. So essentially, this is aimed at cracking down on civil unrest, as Governor Ron DeSantis puts it. This was obviously passed by Republican lines. I think there were a couple Democrats that did go ahead and pass the bill as well. And this here, if I go down, these are some of the things that are in this. So the law grants civil immunity for people who drive through demonstrators blocking a road, meaning they can't be sued for damages if protesters get killed or hurt, though they could still face a criminal charge. That's pretty fucking ridiculous. Now, according to Republicans, they're saying it's only available. You only get immunity if it was in self-defense. So, for example, let's say some rioters or protesters are all like hurtling around your car, and I don't know, they're just hurtling around your car and not letting you drive. Maybe you might get run over, and you might not be able to sue at all. Pretty fucking ridiculous. Self-defense is like such a stupid charge. Like, what if somebody pepper sprays your car window? Now that they can run you over, it's really fucking ridiculous. There's also enhances penalties for crimes committed during riots or violent protests in the Sunshine State. This is from the New York Post, and I actually have this is from the governor's webpage himself. And here are some of the things that are in House Bill 1, called the Combating Public Disorder Act. Increases penalties for existing crimes committed during a violent assembly, and protects the community's law enforcement officers and victims of these types of acts. The bill also creates a specific crime for mob intimidation and cyber intimidation to ensure that Florida will no longer be a welcoming place for those wishing to impose their will on innocent civilians and law enforcement by way of mob mentality. Crimes of mob intimidation, mob intimidation, and cyber intimidation both will become first-degree misdemeanors. So there's nothing objectively wrong when you're saying, well, you can't riot or you can't loot. I think people need to be held accountable if you riot or right. It's not right. The problem is that the language in this law is super vague. What is mob intimidation? I mean, the jury during the George Floyd, the defendant was saying that, oh, Derek Chauvin just kind of knelt on Floyd's neck because a bunch of the mob was yelling at him and calling him and saying he's a fucking pig and shit. So if an officer is like beating up some random black person and you start cursing at the officer, are you going to go to jail for mob intimidation? And cyber intimidation. I mean, I understand if you're saying, oh, we're going to go to this place and kill these police officers. Yeah, obviously that's fucking bad. But what about if you're just going to, I don't know, let's say you live in Georgia and you want to go down to Florida to protest. If you start saying, hey, guys, meet me up here, we're going to go down to Florida to protest, is that going to be cyber intimidation? It's super vague and just doesn't help at all. Also, the destruction and demolition of memorials and historic properties by angry mobs will not be tolerated. So there are new penalties for destroying monuments and historic properties, which of course includes Confederate statues because, down here in the South, we love our racist statues. Um, the statue thing is so stupid. I don't know why we keep arguing about this. Just put them in museums. A lot of people are like, oh, you can't erase history. Like, yeah, there's no fucking statues of Hitler, though, in Germany. Just put them in a museum. It's not that difficult. So this is from the Orlando Sentinel. One last article I want to go to before we go watch the video going to DeSantis. I don't want you. Get out. So we already went that you get civil immunity for running over people. There's also a broad category for misdemeanors arrests during protests, and anyone charged under that provision will be denied bail until their first court appearance. So essentially, if you are protesting, or if you had a riot as they're calling it, you will now be charged with a misdemeanor, and you would be denied bail. This is so unconstitutional on so many levels. I mean, it's so vague. How do you go about this? If I'm at a protest and, it starts getting violent and some people at the protest are actually rioting, If me being there, am I now going to get in trouble? It's super ridiculous, and this is super anti-free speech, anti-assembly. It's just not a good law. Um, it also creates a new felony crime for aggravated rioting that carries a sentence up to 15 years in prison, and then of course the mob intimidation mine, like aggravated rioting. Police officers know how to aggravate protesters. A lot of the times, people think that protesters just, I don't know, start hurling shit at police officers for no reasons. We've seen police officer pepper spray people for no reason. And then kettling, which, for those of you who don't know what kettling is, it's essentially when the police officers try to block you off into one corner just to keep you there. We've seen this happen before. And we've seen kettling happen, and then once they have everyone kettled up, they'll just throw tear gas at you. How would you not want to get out of that situation if you are blocked by police officers at every entryway and you don't want to get tear gassed? You probably want to push some police officers out of the way, right? But now if you do that, you might face a felony of up to 15 years. There was actually another important piece of information as well that I'll let the governor himself just talk about it here for a second.
I think it's really remarkable if you look at the breadth of this particular piece of legislation. It is the strongest anti-rioting, pro-law enforcement piece of legislation in the country. And there's just nothing even close. The bill does a number of things. One, it tackles head-on this idea that we've seen last summer and then we still see today, that there should be a movement to defund law enforcement. Now, obviously, the state of Florida, we're not going to do that under my leadership, but if a local government were to do that, that would be catastrophic and have terrible consequences for their citizens. And so this bill actually prevents against local governments defunding law enforcement. We'll be able to stop it at the state level.
So, yeah, you know what I love about conservatives, by the way? They're always touting about, oh, we hate big government, we need small government, and then they do this authoritative bullshit. So essentially, what's also in the bill is that now, let's say you're Miami-Dade County, let's say you're Polk County, you're Lee County, and the people of Lee County or the police department there's like, hey, you know what? We're gonna defund the police. We're going to put some of the money that the police gets. We're gonna put into our schools. We're gonna put it into local communities, homeless shelters, to combating people with drug addictions, right? Social services that actually do help crime. Police officers don't actually stop crime. They just get there when the crime happens. Most of the time, they're not really a force to stop crime. Social services do help, lifting people out of poverty, education. That is stuff that actually gets people to not commit crime. And so now, if a county decides, we're going to defund the police, we're going to divert some of our resources to these social services, the state of Florida can just say, no, we don't think so. That's such a government overreach coming from people who say they love small government. And another key thing I want to just go over here before I end this video real quick is that none of this is warranted, alright? Like I said at the beginning, rioting and looting isn't good. You shouldn't do it. Conservatives love, oh, people rioting and looting is bad, but they never question why are people rioting and looting. And first of all, again, this isn't warranted because this is from a non-profit organization. 93% of Black Lives Matter protests have been peaceful, and your report finds. This is from the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project. It's a non-profit that out of 7,750 Black Lives Matter demonstrations in all 50 states, 93% of them were peaceful. And right here you can see their criteria. Acts targeting other individuals, property, businesses, other rioting groups or armed actors, anyone fighting back against police, to vandalism, property destruction, looting, road blocking, using barricades. So only 7% of all the Black Lives Matter protests ended up in rioting, which is a significant small portion. And why are people rioting, especially, minorities, black people? Maybe it's because they live in a society where there's a bunch of systemic racism, where the fact that if you're a black person, you're 3.7 times more likely to end up in jail for marijuana, even though black and white people smoke at about the same rates. You're more likely to get a longer prison sentence even if you have the same background as another white person. There are so many problems we have in a society when it comes to the way we treat minorities, and that's a big reason as to why people are fed up and protest. And when they see stuff like George Floyd, and the fact that Derek Chauvin was charged guilty, but the fact that we had to worry and actually, be on edge as if he was gonna get acquitted or not shows you why the system is flawed and why we need to change stuff. So, yep, that's about it. I just want to talk about this crappy anti-riot bill. I hate that I live in Florida every day. I hate that I live in Miami. This fucking blows, but it is what it is. So I'll see you in the next one.